What's up, trainers? You got Pokémon Master TC, and I am here to save the day. I'm finally going to answer the question of how old is Team Rocket? I had this question submitted to me on my X account, and as you guys know, as you returning viewers know, I will answer Pokemon questions to the best of my ability. Now, if you are a first-time viewer on my channel, make sure you hit that sub button because I've got tons of Pokemon videos where I rank Pokemon, I show off my collection, and yes, I answer the biggest questions in the Pokemon universe. So hit that sub button to help my channel grow. All right, let's get into how old is Team Rocket? Pokemon changed my life. It became my first addiction. The TV show, games, cards, and toys. I was enamored by it all. Becoming a Pokemon Master was all that I cared about as a kid, and so I became one. Join me, Pokemon Master TC, as I relive the most nostalgic part of my childhood and showcase my Pokemon collection, and most important of all, share my love of Pokemon with you. Trainers, I thought this answer was going to be easy because I thought that they were 17 years old, but that is wrong. I'm wrong. They are not 17. They're, well, hang on. I'll get into that in just a little bit. But I really went down a huge rabbit hole trying to figure out the correct answer to how old Team Rocket is. And there's a lot of information on the internet. There's a lot of theories and there's a lot of evidence. So I had to sort through all of that to determine what is the real age of Jessie and James. And yes, they are the same age. So let's go ahead and kind of jump into how old Team Rocket is. So let's first cut down some theories of how old Team Rocket is. There were quite a few people out there that thought James was 15 years old. Now, to me, I thought that was too young. You have Ash, who's 10. I thought Misty was 11, and I thought Brock was 13. I have not checked that. I have not done my research. That is just my personal thoughts to those ages besides Ash, who is clearly 10 years old. But for James to be 15, I just thought that was too young to be in Team Rocket. And the theory that he was 15 comes from an episode where James is driving and he turns around to Jessie and he goes, "I should really get my license," meaning that he's probably around 15 years old. Well, that turned into a meme, and then that theory of James being 15 just completely overtook the internet. People were editing the bios of Jessie and James on Bulbapedia, and their pages actually had to get locked down because of this. So the evidence suggests that James and Jessie are not 15 years old. In fact, they're gonna be a little bit older than that. But let me go ahead and squash another theory of how old Jessie is. There's this episode where Jessie is talking to a very old woman, and the woman states that she is 120, and Jessie goes, "Wow, that is 10 times my age," meaning that she would be 12. But this was clearly a joke, and this is gonna go into more evidence later on that I'm gonna talk about, but Jessie is really sensitive about her age because when everyone calls her an old hag or she's old and ugly, she really gets upset about that. And so Jessie is clearly not 12 years old. She's not around Ash's age, and she's certainly not younger than Brock. So that was another theory that she was 12 because of that line that she said, but that is clearly a joke. And Meowth actually points that out. He goes, "That's a bad joke," or "You gotta be kidding me, that math does not add up." So I was thinking, why did I think Jessie and James were 17 years old? And this dates back to the first season of Pokemon. It is in the episode The Ultimate Test, where Jessie is going to fake a profile and join a Pokemon school to be able to enter the Pokemon League by passing some tests. So she's doing this and she's filling out her little profile, and Ash kind of sees her and he's like, she looks pretty familiar to me. And so she quickly is like, age, 17, profession, diva. And so clearly she has an alias and she's trying to, make Ash believe that she is someone else. And in the Japanese version of this, she still puts down 17, but she puts idol instead of diva. And I thought that was kind of clever because Japanese idols are a lot bigger in the country of Japan, and a lot of American kids at that time had no idea what a Japanese idol was. So she writes 17 down in both the Japanese and American versions, but it is clear that she is just trying to do an alias that is not her real age. All right, trainers, do you want to know their real age? Do you want to know the evidence that points to how old Team Rocket is? Well, I got it for you guys. It actually comes from the second Pokemon movie. It's called Pokemon the Movie 2000. Personally, I love this movie, but it comes from a heavily changed scene as far as the dubbing goes. And so in this movie, there's a scene where Team Rocket is talking about Ash and Ash's love interest in the movie, and Jessie and James go, you're 10 years too young to be talking about this, and we are 5 years too old. We're too late for this. And so that's really important piece of information. And so that determines kind of the age gap between Team Rocket and Ash. So Ash is 10 years old and he's 10 years too young for love, meaning that 10 years more would make him 20, and Team Rocket is 5 years too old for love. That would make them 25. So the ages of Team Rocket is 25, and I even have some more evidence to suggest that this is the true age of them. Japan got a lot of really cool Pokemon things that we never got in North America. One of these things was a canon Pokemon drama, or at least an official Pokemon drama, and this was on the radio. And in this radio drama, it tells the story of Team Rocket getting Mew's DNA to clone it to make Mewtwo. And in this radio drama, you hear from the perspective of a woman working for Team Rocket. Her name is Miyamoto, and she talks about how she is a young mother and she has a young child, and she eventually has to leave this child behind to complete her mission. So she gives up this child, and this child goes into the foster care system, and Miyamoto turns out to be Jessie's mother. And this radio drama takes place 20 years before Ash's journey. And so let's take that math into the equation to further give proof that Jessie and James are 25 years old. So let's take 20 years from the first movie. That means Jessie was still alive, because in the drama, it talks about how Jessie is a young girl, a little child. And so she gives her up, so she's at least 20 years old in the anime, in the current anime. And she's not a baby, she's not a toddler in the drama, she's a young girl. So the theory that Jessie and James is 25 or are 25 makes a lot of sense when you talk about the second movie and the big scene of them talking about love, and the radio drama that also points to Jessie being in her mid-20s. So that is the best piece of evidence that I have to give you guys that Team Rocket is 25 years old. Now, I know I've made a big argument for Jessie to be 25, but is there any evidence to suggest that James is around that age or that James is an adult? Well, there is, and it actually kind of recently happened. In the Pokemon anime Sun and Moon, there is a Pokemon that puts an aurora over this entire village, and it only affects the adults. And the adults become lethargic, they kind of become depressed, and none of the kids are affected. But guess who is affected? Team Rocket. And so Jessie and James both become affected by this, meaning that they are adults. And I think that just goes to show you that James is also probably in his mid-20s. He's probably the same age as Jessie because they're so closely paired together. And so they are 25 years old. Now, trainers, if I have missed any evidence or if you have any evidence to suggest otherwise, I would love to hear from you guys. So while you're liking this video, while you're subscribing to it, would you please leave me a comment on anything that I left out to suggest that Team Rocket is not 25 years old. Now, please watch the full video in case you missed any evidence that I talked about, but to my knowledge, they are both 25 years old. I hope that solves the question that you guys were wondering. Now, again, if you haven't yet, make sure you hit that sub button and follow me on X. And if you have any other questions about Pokemon, I'd be happy to dive into it and do a little bit of digging around to see if I can find the official answer. But trainers, if you love Pokemon content, I got a lot of it on my channel. In fact, I just did my official rankings of Pokemon Red and Blue and the cities. How do the cities compare to each other? And what's the worst city and what's the best city? I rank them from worst to first. So check out that video after this one. All right, trainers, I wish you the best in catching them all.